What's up, guys? Today I'll be going over the build I've been playing in the Western version of Lost Ark. I've been getting a lot of questions about it on my stream, so I thought it would be good to make a video to go over everything. I'm going to go over my rotation, my skills, my tripods, runes, engravings, gems, cards, and the stats that I've been going. It's a little bit different build than what other people have been playing, but I am absolutely in love with it. I think it is really good. So let's get started. So I'll start out by going over the rotation, which I think a lot of people want to see. I have two rotations that I go through. One is to fill up the firepower meter to full, and then when it's full, you gain a 20-second buff where I use the second rotation. A lot of bosses like to move around at the start, so I wait to use my homing barrage and air raid until they've kind of stopped moving. So the rotation looks like this. Always put a turret down first. I use forward barrage, flamethrower, napalm strike, one more forward barrage, missile launcher, and then this is where I want to use my awakening skill. And then I want to use homing barrage, air raid, one last forward barrage, and then we want to immediately go into our turret mode, where we use our Q, our W, our E, and then one last Q before we get out. And then right when we get out, we want to immediately use homing barrage and air raid, forward barrage, napalm, put down a turret. We want to wait until our firepower meter empties, and then we want to use flamethrower. Otherwise, we will lose some of the firepower meter gain. And then we're just looking to rotate between all of them, keeping our turret down, using forward barrage, and then we want to line up air raid and homing barrage to go off right when we hit full firepower meter. And again, Q, W, E, and then one last Q before you finish. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and easy just as that. So next we'll go over our skills, our tripods, and the runes I like to use. First one up, we have napalm shot. This is really useful for countering. It is very hard to use as a counter, but the biggest thing is target focus and weak point enhancement. Weak point enhancement adds one additional weak point to the ability if you need to do destruction, and target focus makes it so everybody in your party does more stagger damage to the target. So these are both really important and really useful. Next we have multiple rocket launcher. I like to use flame rocket for the dot, quick barrage so that we can get more rockets out, and then access denied to get even more rockets out. It does decent damage, but mostly is used for gaining firepower meter. Flamethrower, same thing. This is really our firepower meter generator. This is the big one. We have the firepower control tripod to get more firepower meter. I like using the ranged flame. It helps me to maneuver around better and hit mobs more often. You can use any of the tripods on this column. The shield is nice. Ignore collision. They all have uses. I personally prefer range flame. And then I also use azure flame, which gives you a shorter duration but makes it go much quicker. So I like not being locked into holding down the flamethrower for too long. Next we have air raid, quick fire so that we're not locked in animation for very long, lightning barrage for the huge bonus crits, and then the big one to turn it into one singular explosion. Summon turret, this one is very important. This has armor destruction on it, which is a huge damage increase for your whole party, and you can have 100% uptime between this and your howitzer in barrage mode. So you want to make sure you're constantly keeping this up. And then I like to take enhanced turret and laser turret to make the turrets do much more damage. It's pretty surprising how much damage they do. Then we have forward barrage. Now I know a lot of people don't really like this skill, but it really starts to shine once you can get all the way to T3 with dancing explosion. So I start with firepower control to get more firepower gain, quick prep to lower the cooldown so I can use it more often and I can weave it in between using different skills, and dancing explosion. Dancing explosion is super important because it makes it so that it generates firepower twice essentially. You'll notice when you use it, you'll gain firepower meter once and then a second time when the second explosion goes off. This gives you a lot of your firepower meter along with flamethrower. Then we have homing barrage. Guiding enhancement reduces the time before it explodes, so it goes down from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. Weak point detection. This is used to give you huge damage against bosses. If you're doing something like Infinite Chaos, you can try Law of the Jungle. This will give you similar damage, but against smaller monsters. And then Power Bomb. This one is really important. This makes it do even more damage and then leaves a field on the ground that does continuous damage over time as well. Last, we have Energy Field. This is really, really important. Once you get better at knowing when bosses are going to use certain attacks that would knock you down, Energy Field with Solid Shield prevents you from getting knocked down. So the first row, there's not a lot of things to choose from, so I just take Mind Concentration. So that way, if I'm ever out of mana but I need to shield, you can still use your shield. Energy Increase increases the duration your shield is active, is really important when combined with Solid Shield. Finally, we have our Barrage Mode abilities. Now, you can't put any points into these, but what people don't seem to know is you can actually put runes on them. So we'll take a look at the runes next. The combo that I showed earlier, you use your Howitzer, Focus Fire, Energy Can, and then one Howitzer. Now, the reason we do this is we put Rage on our Howitzer. What this does is, since we start the combo with this, we have a chance to proc Rage, which gives us more attack speed to get through our rotation quicker. And then, whenever our rotation is done, we use Howitzer one more time, and we have another chance to proc Rage to go through the rest of our rotation even faster. It's great synergy with this rotation. On Focus Fire, we have Gale Wind, and then Energy Cannon, we also have Gale Wind. So by running less swiftness, we still have these ways to speed up our rotation, even though we don't have as much swiftness. Our ability, the shield, is really important. It gives you a lot of staying power whenever you might get hit. One thing to keep in mind, if you are using Adrenaline, about halfway through your Focus Fire, that's when you're going to want to click Impregnability. This will keep up your Adrenaline stacks, and then you can do Energy Cannon into Howitzer and you won't lose Adrenaline, so keep that in mind. So the other runes we're looking at, if we scroll back up, Flamethrower, I put the Wealth rune on it. Again, all about just gaining firepower as much as possible, and this will give you tons and tons of firepower, especially with Barrage. Air Raid, this is where our other Gale Wind is. Air Raid has one of the longest animations out of all our skills. So Gale Wind plus Quick Fire really gets you out of that animation much, much faster. Now on Summon Turret, this is really important. You want to use Bleed. The turret is constantly attacking. This means that your Bleed has almost 100% uptime. And it's another reason we take the cooldown reduction gem for turret, which we'll talk about later. But this is really, really important and adds a ton of damage onto your turret. Forward Barrage, same as Flamethrower, we put our other Wealth rune on here. As you can see, it really gets you much, much more firepower. Finally, Homing Barrage, I have Overwhelm. Now, you can run this on Homing Barrage, or more reliably, you can put it on Napalm Shot. Either one works great. Now, let's take a look at the stats I run. This is a little different than what other people are doing, but I love Specialization. Now, as you can see here, Specialization increases our bombardment skill damage, our firepower effectiveness, and our awakening skill damage. Now, what do these mean? The bombardment skill damage, it's a little awkwardly translated, but what this means is it's referring to our identity skill. When we hit Z and we go into our turret, all of those skills, Howitzer, Focus Fire, and Energy Cannon, all are gaining over 100% more damage based on my current specialization. Firepower effectiveness means how much our firepower buff is increased. So at level 3, we have a 30% damage increase, and our specialization is giving us over 100% increase on that 30%. So it's huge damage. And then awakening skill damage is our V skill. So tons and tons and tons of damage come from specialization. Now, I personally like to run swiftness just on my neck. So that's where I get my little bit of swiftness from. I think the build feels much, much, much better with this little bit of swiftness. I think running no swiftness makes it feel very clunky and awkward. So I think this is really important, especially combined with all of the Gale Wind runes and Rage and stuff like that we're using. So next, we'll take a look at our engravings. I use firepower enhancement, and right now I'm using Keen Blunt and Adrenaline. Both of these are the much cheaper versions and much easier to get going. They work extremely well together. We have firepower giving us tons and tons of crit. As our firepower meter goes up, we gain more crit. So at 0 firepower meter, which is the gray zone, you don't gain any benefit from crit. But as you go up, you gain more and more crit, as you can see. Then we have, we'll look at Adrenaline next. Adrenaline gives us even more crit, more and more crit, right? So that we can run specialization on our gear instead of crit is the idea. So Adrenaline, you almost never actually have to pay attention to keeping this up. It'll constantly be up, except for, like I said earlier, when you're in your identity skill, you need to make sure you use your shield about halfway through your focus fire mode so that you maintain the adrenaline buff and it doesn't fall off, because you only have the crit when you're at max stacks. And then finally, for my last one right now, I'm using Keen Blunt. This gives you huge crit damage with all of our crit that we're running. I currently have about 77% crit. I'll have 87% with the 5-piece bonus from Argos. And then if you have a gunslinger in your party, you have about an additional 10% chance. And then if you have any little bit of crit, so I have like a little bit here, 1%. So I'll be at about 88% chance to crit with this current, or 98% chance to crit with this current setup, which is crazy high. So it makes Keen Blunt even better. Now the one drawback to Keen Blunt is you have about a 10% chance at all times to do 20% less damage. So the crit damage overrides that reduction in damage, so it's really important. Now the final engraving is super important, barrage enhancement. Now this might not look like it does much. It gives your identity mode 20% more damage, but the other two things are what's most important. One, if you have no firepower buff, which is where I'm at right now, it increases the amount of firepower meter you gain, so you get out of that quicker, which is really important. Two, it removes the cooling effect. The cooling effect is once you reach and leave firepower mode, you have a 20 seconds before you can re-enter your identity skill. But with Barrage, you no longer have to worry about that cooldown timer. So you can fill your meter back up in less than 20 seconds, and you can re-enter your identity skill. Now, the other two engravings that I will be going for are, of course, Grudge, which is, it makes you take more damage, but gives you a ton more damage. And with Firepower Enhancement, we actually take 20% less damage. So it really helps kind of balance out the increased damage from Grudge. And then the final one I'll be going for is Cursed Doll. So I'll be looking at these three plus Grudge and Cursed Doll at level 3, and then I always want to keep Barrage Enhancement at least level 1. You can go higher with Barrage, it won't hurt you, but you want to make sure you always have it at least level 1. Now for our gems, I'm very close to having all the gems I want. The big things are Homing Barrage and Barrage skills. You want to have both damage and cooldown on them. We'll scroll up. Air Raid, damage and cooldown. Those are your big three that you want to make sure you have. Next one, cooldown reduction on energy field is super great quality of life. I love this. And the last few are a bit of a toss-up. I really like cooldown reduction on flamethrower. The damage on flamethrower, it's okay. It's mostly used for gaining firepower meter. Ideally, this would be a damage one for summon turret. I like both damage and cooldown on summon turret. And then I put a damage one on multiple rocket launcher. I'll put a link down below of all the gems I plan on going for, so you can check that out. Finally, right now I'm running the Lost Wind Cliff 12-piece Awakening set for the 7% additional crit. So like I said, with a Gunslinger in my group, I'm at about 98% crit chance, and it feels really, really, really good. Here's the link to all the things I was talking about. You can see here, it's got all my skills, my tripods, gems, runes. I have the gear I'm running. I'm running the solar set from Argos. My pet, I run HP, specialization, couple battle items. I mean, the normal stuff everyone's running. I run specialization and swiftness. You don't have to get these exact stats, just so you remember which ones I run. List of my engravings I talked about. The card set I'm currently running. And yeah, so I'll link this down below. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll gladly answer them. I stream over on twitch.tv/Karth. I've been doing tons of PvE, but with the ranked season coming out soon, I'll be doing a ton of PvP as well. So if you like either of them, make sure you stop by, ask any questions. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.